The Puck Portfolio with Andy McNeil.
Hey, welcome to the Puck Portfolio. I'm your host, Andy McNeil. It is Thursday, December 12th. Big 14-game slate to break down in the NHL today. And joining me, as always, is Daily Faceoff's own Nick Martin. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Yep. You know how it is on these big slates. Makes a busy morning, but other than that, yeah, things are great.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a pretty light slate on Wednesday, just the two games, of course. The Senators beating up on the Ducks, and a pretty lackluster performance from the Buffalo Sabres versus the struggling New York Rangers. But thankfully, we did get Tage Thompson and JJ Peterka to link up on a goal late in the game. A meaningless goal otherwise, but not meaningless for us. And, some would call us lucky getting that goal with 40 seconds left. But I'd say the luckier part of it all is that Peterka was benched for almost the entirety of the second period. So it's we're lucky that he got back into the game to register that point alongside Tage Thompson, who you of course had to score an anytime goal. So another winning night on the Puck Portfolio. We'll try to parlay that into another successful night. Like I said, a big Thursday slate here in the NHL, 14 games. Let's start with the Habs and the Penguins. Nick, we talked a little bit about this one earlier this morning. I just wrote up a preview for dailyfaceoff.com that should be coming out pretty quick here. I know our editor, Greg, has his work cut out for him this morning. With all your work, of course, you've got four articles actually coming out today, do you?
Yeah, he just sent me a note as we say this. So anyways, yeah, shout out to Greg. He's working hard.
Yeah. Greg's had his workload doubled over the last couple of months, probably, like a lot of us have. But anyways, it's fun times in the sports world, and that starts with a big slate here. Like I said, the Habs and the Canadians going head to head. This is going to be the final meeting of the season between these two teams. They've already met twice. Pittsburgh has won both games. Montreal is the only team that Pittsburgh has managed to defeat two times this season. So there's that, I guess. And the Penguins, they've won 5 of the last 7. They have lost 2 of their last 3, but I guess you could call this their best stretch of hockey this season, considering they haven't racked up this many wins in this short duration of a time at any other point. But Montreal is also looking a lot better lately. Of course, they only got 4 wins in their first 15 games, but they're 7-5-1 over the last month, which is, respectable to say the least. And a big reason for that is the play of Samuel Montembeault, who has been really good, particularly at home, where he is 5-2-2 with a .929 save percentage and a 2.15 goals against average in his last 7 starts. I don't think we're going to see Caden Primo. I mean, it's been confirmed that Montembeault is going to start on Thursday against the Penguins, but I don't think we're going to see Caden Primo until the Habs play a back-to-back against the Detroit Red Wings a little later this month. I think it's the 20th and 21st, or the 21st and 22nd, something like that. But I think the head coach Martin St. Louis is going to try to keep Primo on the bench for the time being, given how he's struggled this year. But like I said, the Penguins have won 5 out of 7 games. I'm not really sure how they've done it though, because they don't really look good. Like, nothing has really changed here. Their defense is still horrible. They've been, actually, I shouldn't say nothing has changed. They've been scoring more goals. Only the Utah Hockey Club has scored more 5-on-5 goals over the last 7 or 8 games than the Penguins have. But you look at the last month, they're still dead last in goals against at 5-on-5. They're still second last in shots against at 5-on-5. So a lot of bad stuff going on here for the Pittsburgh Penguins, kind of being carried right now by their depth players. Rickard Rakell, of course, leading the team in goals this season with 11. And, he along with Rakell, it's been guys like Michael Bunting and Brian Rust, etc. Even Blake Lizotte doing all the scoring lately for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Sidney Crosby, I believe he has just 1 goal in his last 10 games. Or 2 goals in his last 11 games, something like that. Same goes for Evgeny Malkin. Obviously, the Canadians, they've got their offensive struggles as well. Not really talking about guys like Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki, who have been great, specifically lately, both scoring at more than a point per game pace. But looking at you, Alex Newhook and Uri Slafkovsky and Kirby Dach, it's actually, I think, quite respectable that the Canadians have been able to pull together a decent little run here, given that they're, three of their top six forwards are underperforming so much. So you'd like to see something give there. But I'm on a couple of shot props here in this game, Nick. The first one is one that did not come through for me in the last game versus Anaheim. Patrick Laine over 2.5 shots on goal. It's minus 120. Shop around, you can find minus 115 at some books. That's what I locked in at Bet365. I think he should have registered 3 shots on goal versus the Ducks, but thankfully he scored early in that game at plus 210. So it was a profitable game anyway. But I think he's got a good opportunity. As I mentioned, Pittsburgh has a lot of defensive issues. They allow a lot of shots. They've allowed 31.4 shots on goal over the last 10 games per game. And I think this is going to be another good opportunity for Laine to shoot the puck. The shooting lanes should be open here for the big winger. He has at least 5 shot attempts in his last 3 games. And of course, 3 power play goals. Hasn't scored an even strength goal tonight. But as I mentioned, the Penguins allow a lot of even strength goals. So maybe if Slafkovsky and Dach can get things together at even strength, Laine might find some success there. The Penguins do have a pretty decent penalty kill, all things considered. So not sure if Laine will, continue scoring power play goals tonight. But I am pretty confident that he's going to get a good look at going over 2.5 shots on goal. And I also like Chris Letang over 2.5 shots on goal. This one's at plus 145 and also plus 135. I think plus 145 at Bet365, plus 135 at Sports Interaction. He has registered 3 or more shots in nearly half his games this season. And if you take away the first 5 games, I believe, which he did not register 3+ shots, he's done so in 13 out of his last 21 games. So it doesn't really make sense that they're, facing the Penguins are facing another team that allows a lot of shots in the Montreal Canadiens for him to be priced at plus 145 or plus 135. This prop is hitting, far more than 50% of the time. And this is implying that he'll only go over 2.5 shots about 43% of the time. He has 21 shots on goal in his last 5 games. So lots of shot volume from Letang. And of course, he has that, top pairing position, top power play position. So I think tonight's going to be another good opportunity for him. So Laine over 2.5 shots on goal, minus 115, let's say minus 120 or better, considering what's out there. And Chris Letang over 2.5 shots on goal, plus 135 or better, both 1 unit plays.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, one thing that's been helping Letang is he's not getting anchored to Grzelcyk anymore. The Pens, and this is part of the reason they've turned it around. They've started playing Owen Pickering on the top pairing, which has actually helped because Grzelcyk's been that horrible. And they have given them more sheltered minutes, but I think their best combinations were still those nights where they were healthy scratching Graves recently. But having him and Grzelcyk on the third pairing also seems to be helping them out overall. So I think on a smaller slate, I might honestly end up on the Pens here. I think overall, like I said to you, you look at the Canadiens over their last 7 games, 44% expected goals versus Columbus, the Rangers, the Bruins, the Isles, the Preds, the Caps, who are back-to-back and in a bad spot, and the Ducks probably should have won that game on Monday. So I think basically looking at, you might be a little more positive looking at the Canadiens than me here. I think they pretty much just have a goalie playing good. And Laine, I think you got to give a shout out to Laine, obviously boosts their offensive upside, and he's never going to be an analytical darling either. So, yeah.
No, I'm in agreement with you. I don't like the Habs from a betting perspective as a team here, just going with the Laine prop. But I do think there is something to be said about the fact that they, like I said, they've been able to put together a fairly respectable run that, it's been driven mostly by goaltending. But just think if they could get Slafkovsky and Dach and Newhook going in the right direction, producing a little more regularly here, and specifically Slafkovsky start producing like he was last year, this things could really turn for this team. Not playoff sort of turn, but respectable finish to the season sort of turn. So obviously Montembeault has been great lately, but he's still, not as good as he was the last couple of seasons. So I think there's still some room to grow here for him as well. But of course, they've got that backup issue, and at some point, Monty is going to get burned out here if they keep running him like they are. So yeah, definitely not an ideal situation for the Montreal Canadiens. But as producer Jake, I'm sure, can attest to, a lot more reason to be positive heading into the holiday season than there was in the first couple of months of the NHL season. Nick, you got an early game you want to focus on here? Is it the maybe the Leafs, or who do you got?
Now we always do the Leafs. Let's go with I like the Devils, and I'm kind of surprised to see this number tick down. They're at minus 140 right now, which makes it one of the sides that I lost value on, and I'm not exactly seeing why. So that makes it still one of my preferred plays on the board here. I've been pretty favorable to the Kings all year. You probably, kind of followed that. I said that I thought they were the third best team in the Pacific Division. They are winning a ton of games in regulation. They have the most regulation wins. So I'm not necessarily just underrating what the Kings are. And I'm just trying to double check that there isn't some bad news, because I'm just pretty surprised to see this one tick down. But I think you look at what the Devils are doing right now, and they have been top to bottom one of the more impressive teams in the league. All they really need is Jacob Markstrom to mix in some saves, which is a bit of a big ask, but their underlying profile is as good as anyone in the league right now. They've got the best power play in the league. I think defensively they look pretty sharp. I don't think it's like last season where at times their goaltenders were probably struggling from a tough environment where they hold the puck for so much of the game they're spending in the offensive zone. But when it comes the other way, it's a lot of tough chances and plays into the slot and that sort of thing. It doesn't look like the Devils are doing that. I think this really just looks like a defensive juggernaut. That Leafs game, I really think you can just pin on the gap between the two goalies here. So as much as I actually respect that the Kings look pretty good, they've been one of the best defensive teams in the league once again, which is really what they've been pretty much every, at least for 3 or 4 seasons here. I'm not quite sure how the Devils are only minus 140 here. I think they're a team that's on the come up, and really, the only concern is goaltending. I think they should be able to come out and carry the majority of the play here, give themselves a good chance. And again, even the goaltending too. And Jake Allen, if it is him, has been good. So I guess he's out. But whoever
He's out. It looks like Markstrom starting here. He was in the starter's crease at practice, and the only injury note right now for the Devils that is new is Eric Holla missed practice this morning, but that's not enough to move the needle in any direction.
No, he gets carried by the rest of the team, I'd say, anyway. So yeah, I mean, even the goaltending disparity between these teams, we're talking about goaltending is the issue, or when it's going to be Rittich versus Markstrom, like that. I don't know. Yeah, to me, this one looks pretty short. I feel like I've, given the Kings quite a lot of credit this year, but it seems like a game in New Jersey. You'd expect wider prices. So
yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I have the Devils at minus 154 for a projected money line price. Unfortunately, though, looks like I'm really only seeing, I guess the best I'm seeing out there is in Las Vegas, specifically only in Las Vegas at Circa Sports minus 142. If it got to that point, I'd be really interested, but really the Canadian book still stuck at minus 150 here.
Bet 365 is at minus 140 right now. So there's one.
Are they?
It's definitely quite playable.
Showing minus 150. So I will check that out really quick because I'm curious myself. Yeah, it is minus 140. Weird. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think I'm gonna lock this in right now then, because I agree with you. I'm not really sure why this one would tick down here, and yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. I like it. Let's go Devils. Hopefully it'll be. I was lucky we got that tie in the last game, but hopefully they'll get the result they deserve in this one.
For sure. Let's talk about the Oilers and the Wild, because some news coming out of the Edmonton Oilers organization. Calvin Pickard going to get the start against the Wild tonight. Stuart Skinner getting a break after a really strong run from Skinner, 5 games in a row with a positive goal saved above expected. I've seen people say 7, but I'm not really sure how they count that Minnesota performance against the Wild a few weeks ago as a positive because there was one of his worst games of the season. And if you remember, Nick, I was pretty eager to back the Wild. I think you did too, when they played the Oilers in Edmonton on November 21st. But some things have changed since then, right? I mean, Minnesota, they had just gotten Jonas Brodin back a couple of games, or a game before that game versus the Oilers at the end of November. So there were some things on an upward trend when it came to the Wild, but since then, Brodin is back on the shelf. They still haven't got Matt Zuccarello in the lineup; he's still out, and now Joel Eriksson Ek is also out. So it's a big, some big holes in the Wild lineup, and they haven't been playing bad necessarily. They've dropped off on offense quite a bit. They went from being a top 10 offensive team in the first month to 17th, I believe, in goals per 60 minutes right now over the last month. Still great defensively, obviously, still ranking among the top teams in goals against and expected goals against, but they don't do a great job suppressing shots, and that's kind of always been the case with this team. Where they do a good job of limiting scoring chances, but not necessarily a great job at suppressing shots overall. And yeah, I think that's pretty evident when you see a team ranked second in expected goals per 60 minutes, but 18th in shots against per 60 minutes. So I like Connor McDavid here to go over 3.5 shots. North Star Bets had this one at plus 130. I doubt that's still sticking around. It was so off market. But there was some plus 115 down to plus 105. I think there's a pretty good bet to be had here because McDavid has gone over 3.5 shots in 15 of his 25 games. He's done so in 12 of his last 15 games since coming back from injury. Has slowed down a little bit, I guess, over the last handful of games, but overall, I think, this is a prop that I might sound like a broken record, but I'm going to keep betting it until there's a reason not to. And I don't think that this is a 50-50 proposition. I think this is something that's going to happen more than 50% of the time. He's got 4+ shots in 6 out of his last 9 games against the Wild. If you need a little extra, but I like McDavid to go over the shot total again here on Thursday. But other than that, I mean, I think the Oilers, maybe, with Calvin Pickard in net now, are kind of priced a little bit too high, or at least they were. So I guess I was sort of borderline Wild, but not as much. I didn't have as much interest in them, that's for sure, as I did the last game. So just the McDavid shot prop for me on this one. Do you have any takes here, Nick? I know you've been kind of monitoring the Wild and maybe waiting for them to fall off, and they've had a pretty easy schedule. They've only played 7 playoff teams. I think that only accounts for 11 of their 27 games this season. So we should find out a little bit more about, who this team is down the stretch here, but yeah, not really willing to fade them just yet.
Yeah, I mean, I gave out yesterday the Oilers money line, and I said I was interested to see how the market would react to this one. They're minus 125 when we talked yesterday. They got up to minus 150, and then we got the Picard news. So
Yeah.
I think it is interesting to see. Looks like definitely some other sharper bettors were viewing them as a good bet in this spot. And I do think that the Wild look like they're a very legitimate team, but kind of perhaps about to go into one of these Jets type fall offs. I don't know if we'll see them into that kind of a run, but it feels like one of these things where maybe we've seen a bit of a high water mark and the Oilers are really starting to come into their own. So I think as long as you see the Oilers get some decent goaltending here, before this little surge from Skinner, it's not like I would have even been that upset to see this goaltending announcement, but I would have preferred Skinner just given that he has seemed to find it. And I think at his best, he's obviously better than Picard. So that kind of sucks.
It's not so much. It's not always so much that there's a big difference between the goaltenders. It's almost more so that the market thinks there's a big difference a lot of the time. So you'd like to be on the right side of that. And obviously, if Skinner had started, you'd be looking at a great bet right now. But now it's kind of so-so, right? So
yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It's still 15 cents off where it was.
For sure,
so.
yeah.
But yeah, the other thing too, to work towards your McDavid prop, I think there's an argument to be made that Brodin's their best shutdown defender, Eriksson Ek's their best defensive forward. So 2 pretty key losses that should hopefully help McDavid get some chances here.
Big time. Trying to remember what else you had today. You had something in the Capitals game, didn't you? Something a little spicy, maybe cooked
Yeah.
up a little parlay.
Yeah, if you want to keep it a little more basic, I think you could just go with Protus or Dubois to get a point. But I like them stacked together to get a point at plus 300. That's on
Nice.
Bet365. I think it's a pretty good look. We've seen Protus is second in the league in even strength points per 60. And I think if he was in another market with less storylines, people would be talking about his skill set nonstop and all of the things that he brings to the team. And then I've kind of been beating the drum that Dubois' production's about to pick up for a while now, and he's been pretty good to us in the prop market. I think every time we've picked him to get a point, he has come through, and I continue to think he looks excellent. So at the end of that Montreal game, Carberry put Wilson with Protas and Dubois, and they broke through with two pretty critical goals in that game in a brief period together. So obviously small sample here, but I do really like the way all three are playing, and they get a good matchup versus Columbus, who have allowed the third most goals in the league this season. So, yeah, I think for a smaller bet, that's a good sprinkle. I really like the way Protas and Dubois are playing, and they get a great matchup here. So I'm happy to take the chances that they combine to get one.
Yeah, I still haven't checked in to see how Tom Wilson is looking after taking that puck to the face, man. He had the swelling to say the least, but yeah, big performance from him especially after that. That's not going to be one that anybody forgets for a long time. But yeah, it's a great slate, Nick. I think there's a lot of interesting games on the slate. We gave out the Chicago Blackhawks. That was our big underdog play on yesterday's show. Looking ahead to Thursday. Haven't gotten a ton of line value. We got it at plus 165, and it's down to plus 155, which is pretty good. But I still like Chicago. I'd still bet them at that price. I'm not going to add to it, but because I've got a great price already. But yeah, I wouldn't hesitate to bet the Blackhawks here. Has your opinion changed on this at all?
No, not at all. And I mean, maybe that's one we don't need to go too much back into. But again, I
No, for
just
sure.
think the way the Islanders are playing offensively, the Blackhawks have, they just played a great game at MSG. I think at their best, we've seen them, be able to get into at least low event coin flip type games. So
Yeah.
I think that, like we said, pretty good chance this is a 1-goal game one way or the other. And I think if that is the case, obviously we like the plus 160 tag here.
Yeah, for sure. No, I just wanted to bring it up because still kind of relevant here, even though it has moved a bit. Still a game that I have some interest in, and I would play at the current odds. Chicago plus 155, but shop around. The Dallas Stars hosting the Nashville Predators tonight. The Stars are huge favorites. Not what we would have thought a few months ago before the season started in this matchup. And one of the big reasons is that Roman Josi is day to day with an injury. He missed the last two periods in the last outing. So that's obviously a big loss to the Preds. I don't have anything on this game, but just wanted to add that note. Do you have any thoughts here? Any betting advice for this one, Nick?
I think if I had to summarize it, I actually kind of liked the Preds here before the Stars or before the Yossi absence, but now I'm kind of more getting into pass. I haven't really been entirely impressed with Dallas recently, and I do think that maybe this is another one of these spots where it's the absolute bottom of the market for the Preds. But yeah, at this point, I think far from my favorite play on the slate. There are a lot of pretty good underdogs, I think, though.
Yeah. What about the Winnipeg Jets, the Vegas Golden Knights? Did they qualify as a good underdog?
I don't think so. I actually like the Jets as well in this one. I kind of think that it's a good spot again for a team that's obviously probably somewhere between what we saw at the start of the year compared to what they've been recently, right? I ended up betting them in that Bruins game after kind of diving into what I thought, the Bruins were, or just the idea that they were a little overvalued because of their schedule under Sacco. And they obviously did prove us wrong there. So only one game, but it felt like a pretty big get right performance. And I don't think they're maybe as bad as we've seen thus far. And I think Vegas, has some flaws here and there to nitpick. So I don't mind taking Hellebuck and the Jets here at minus 125 if that is, the matchup.
Yeah, for sure. This one has been lopsided for a while, not even counting the playoffs, which Vegas eliminated Winnipeg in 5 games a couple of seasons ago. They've won 7 straight meetings against the Winnipeg Jets in the regular season. Of course, that come from behind win back on November 29th. I felt pretty lucky getting the win there on the Golden Knights. So not gonna test my chances here in this game. But other than that, I wanted to talk about the Boston Bruins and the Seattle Kraken. Not a whole lot to discuss here, but I think this is a good spot to go over 5.5 goals at -110. Shop around, you might be able to find a few cents better if you really look. But I think this is a good play at -110. Small sample, but the Bruins have featured, or Boston's games have featured 6 or more goals in 6 of the last 8 games, while Seattle, their games have featured 6 or more goals in 5 out of the last 7. So I think this is a good matchup. Both teams, Boston, I mean, as much as they're going to want a good defensive effort after that abomination of a game versus Winnipeg, in which they lost 8-1. I think they're also going to want to score some goals, right? They're going to be hungry to put some goals in the back of the net here. So I like the Kraken and the Bruins to go over 5.5 at -110. But that's it for me as far as bets go. 5 bets for the day: Chicago, Boston, Seattle over 5.5. Of course, Patrick Laine over 2.5 shots. Chris Letang over 2.5 shots. And then finally, what was the other one? Why am I forgetting right now? There was something else, wasn't there?
What, did you get?
Oh yeah,
Letang?
Connor McDavid. How could I forget about number 97? McDavid over 3.5 shots, plus 105 or better, but you can definitely get better than that out there. Plus 115 was available at least a few sports books here in Canada. Nick, is there any other games that we glossed over? Looks like you got some really good closing line value, or what looks to be some closing line value on the Florida Panthers on your early play yesterday.
Yeah, I can't believe how much that one has moved. It almost
Minus
makes me
115. Is that what it opened?
Yeah, and there was plenty
Wow.
of minus 130s even once the majority of books opened. So that was, overnight an insane amount of movement. I'm surprised that it's, moved this much, to be honest. I obviously would not endorse the Panthers at minus 180. I think, like
No.
I said, the case for the Canucks, uh, yeah, they really have been struggling. Like I'm starting. Did we get into this yesterday? I think I'm
Yeah, we
really.
got into it quite a bit, but
Yeah, I
no,
was planning on.
I want to know though, has it moved enough where you would consider, like, if you hadn't bet Florida already, would you be tempted to bet the Canucks now?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to,
Right?
maybe on another
It's
slate.
getting to
Definitely
that
not.
point, is it not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a incredible amount of movement. So pretty
Yeah.
surprising there. I don't know if maybe there was some belief that Miller might play or what it is, or if it's just this much kind of,
Yeah.
people kind of putting together what the Canucks are right now. But
Plus 155 home underdog. Probably haven't seen that in a couple of seasons, I guess, from the
yeah,
Vancouver Canucks. So
for sure. Yeah, I
at least
think
the
that's
season.
I think that's it, right? I'm not sure. There's a lot I like. I think the Sharks.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
Nylander.
yeah.
Yeah, you glossed over the Maple Leafs as if you didn't want to talk about them, but you got Willie to talk about. We put him in
Yeah, I
the
like this
the
one.
thumbnail for you, Nick, and you're not even going to talk about him.
Yeah, let's get to Nylander. And hopefully it's still out there at a decent number. He was at minus 125 this morning. I haven't double checked where it's still at, but I like him to go over 3.5 shots on goal. I know it's obviously going to be really popular prop tonight, but I do think it sets up really well. He's had a couple of lesser performances over the last few nights, but a lot of those were games where the Leafs just got altogether outplayed. And obviously a big part of that is Nylander not being at his best too, but I think that's really hurt his production, that they've had these games in New Jersey where they're getting like 13 shots. Even versus Chicago, they didn't generate a lot. Their matchup versus Nashville was really low event. And the Caps obviously are a really strong defensive team and locked the Leafs down pretty hard on Friday. So I think his lesser shot totals lately have been a lot just the matchups. And now he gets a matchup versus the Ducks, who are playing back to back and allowing the most shots against in the entire league. So I feel like it's a good spot to buy with Nylander. And the other thing to like too is they weren't very good on Tuesday, but he has fared really well with Tavares and Pacioretty this season. Out of the combinations that have played over 50 minutes together, that unit ranks second in shot attempts per 60 among all the Leafs combinations this season. So he's in a role where he has been getting quite a few shots, and I feel like you get the matchup versus the Ducks, should be plenty of offensive zone time. I think we'll see him get his share of looks in this game for sure.
Yeah, I like it. Big slate and lots of plays. You want to do a quick recap in addition to your Nylander play? You also like.
Yeah, it's a huge slate. I have a lot more posted too, but it's getting to the point where it's hard to keep track of where everything's even moved. But I like the Nylander one. I think the Devils at -140 is one of the only ones that's lost value, but I'm still a big fan of that. So that's probably, I think, one of the best prices out there of what we've given out. I like Protas.
We've done pretty good on the consensus plays as well when we both agree on one, I believe.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because you're my good luck charm, I don't lose in shootouts.
Thanks, buddy.
But I like Protas and Dubois to combine for or each get a point at +300. I like the Jets money line, and is that it? I think that's it out of the ones remaining.
I think that's it. Of course, you can follow both Nick and I on the Action Network app. Get notified when we submit plays on there. So that would be one way to follow us. But we'd appreciate it, mostly if you followed us here on the Puck Portfolio Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Jake, I've gotta do it, man. I've got to bring you on voice only, I guess, and ask you, can you explain to our listeners what they need to know about the new podcast feed? Because I think I did a terrible job of explaining it yesterday. So I think maybe I'll get you to do it today, if you don't mind.
All right, you're putting me on the spot here. The gist of it is we're trying to get the fans of the Line Change, which of course Nick Martin's previous podcast, into the fold here at the Puck Portfolio. So the Line Change podcast feed, their RSS feed, is officially changing over to the Puck Portfolio feed. So if you're a Puck Portfolio listener from the last couple of years, either from Canada Sports Betting or Daily Faceoff, that feed is not going to receive new episodes as of Friday. It's going to be a new feed that will also be called the Puck Portfolio, so you'll have to find it wherever you get your podcasts, whether it be Apple or Spotify or whatever that may be. And please turn on notifications so that next week when the Tuesday episode drops, if you notice you don't have a new episode, you'll know that you're still on the old one and not the new one. Obviously, we'll give out more information next week when this is all official. We'll give you guys some links and stuff, so don't worry. We'll take care of you. We'll get you to the point where you can find the podcast. But yeah, that's basically the gist of it.
For sure, yeah. Maybe I didn't do such a terrible job. I think that's basically what I said yesterday. But
yeah, you're being too hard on yourself. You did fine.
But I had a few people reach out after the show that they were a little confused about what's going on. But I believe we'll have the link tomorrow, and if that's the case, I'll put a tweet out, and you guys can follow the podcast right from that link. I'll do it again on Monday, Tuesday, going forward. We'll make sure that you get to the right place. But you can find us here on the DFO Fantasy and Betting YouTube channel, regardless, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And we really appreciate you joining us each week. Hopefully more and more of you continue to join the show. It's been a pretty successful run, especially in the last month. So hopefully we'll keep that going into the holiday season, and bring it back in the new year. But we've got a couple of weeks left before the break, and lots of hockey before we get to the Four Nations Cup. So keep it locked here to the DFO Betting and Fantasy YouTube channel, and drop a like on the video if you have not already. Comment, tell us how good looking we are. Tell us, to compliment Nick's hair, compliment my hat, whatever you want. But we appreciate all of you for tuning in each and every week, and hopefully you can all get over to the new podcast feed, and we'll continue to grow over there. But I think that pretty much does it for this week. And just one game on Friday. It's I can't even remember what that game is. I guess it's not that important. It's the Hurricanes and who? Senators. That's why I forgot. The damn Senators.
It's a nice off day for us, Andy.
Yeah,
Easy
it is.
Saturday.
For sure. But we will have some stuff up on dailyfaceoff.com and the rest of the Nation Network over the weekend. Of course, the Oilers are playing again on Saturday, so I'll be covering that game at OilersNation.com. You can find all my betting previews for the Oilers there. And then the rest are at DFO. You can find Nick's work at Leafs Nation, Flames Nation, and Canucks Army. And of course, Daily Faceoff. He's putting out player props there quite often. So keep it locked to DFO, and we will see you next week. Until then, good luck with your bets.